Let's do this. A busy Tuesday, Locked On Lions, including the great Ross Tucker joining the show.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's do this, everybody. Matt Derry with you. It's Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day on a Tuesday, October 17th, an off day for the Lions, and a Wednesday, October 18th, Detroit at Baltimore. Sunday in Chocolate City. Should be interesting. Lions and Ravens. Baltimore 4-2, very stingy defense. Roquan Smith had an all-pro type year in that linebacking core. We'll get the crossover on Thursday with Kevin Oestreicher, but today, Ross Tucker of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, CBS, Westwood 1, former NFL offensive lineman. We love Ross. He's going to join the program coming up momentarily. Locked On Lions today, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Please follow us on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Derry Facebook fan page. And as always, you can watch us on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Shout out to our boy Andy J holding it down on Threads. Yes, Threads is still a thing. At the real Matt Derry. All right. Before we talk to Ross Tucker and break down what's going on with the Lions and get Ross's thoughts, it's starting to trickle in here. Tuesday and Wednesday is like power rankings day. Like today, they put out the Locked On hosts to do the power rankings. If you were doing the Matt Derry power rankings, I would still put San Francisco ahead of the Lions. I would have the Niners 1, probably Miami 2, and I would have the Lions 3. I would have the Lions ahead of Philly, who would be 4, and to me, Kansas City would be 5. And I would put the Lions ahead of the Chiefs because the Lions beat the Chiefs. All right, those are just my power rankings if I was doing it. And I vote at the Locked On Network ones. But today, a couple of power rankings are starting to come in, including on First Take today on ESPN, none other than Stephen A. Smith. Yes, stay off the weed, Stephen A. Smith. And today, his power rankings, where he had his top 5 NFL teams through 6 weeks. He had Philly at 5, Kansas City at 4, Miami at 3, San Francisco at 2, and he had the Lions number 1. Lions. Yeah. Detroit Lions. Yes. 1 playoff win since 1957 Lions. Yes. Wayne Fontes winning as coach, losing as coach Lions. Yes. Barry Sanders retires Lions. Yes. Calvin Johnson retires Lions. Yes. Booing the owner on the field Lions. Yes. Rod Wood Lions. Yes. All of it. Matt Millen, W.C. Ford, all of it. Yes. Detroit Lions, number 1, according to Stephen A. Smith. Pretty cool. Then you flip over to FS1. Our buddy Nathan Litke, as I like to call him, the executive producer. He's an everydayer. He's here every day. Nathan sends me Colin Cowherd's herd hierarchy. Okay, where he ranks the top 10. Number 5, Philadelphia. Number 4, Detroit. Number 3, Baltimore. Number 2, Kansas City. And number 1, San Francisco. Still has the Niners ahead. But still, the Lions just keep moving up. They just keep creeping. They just keep moving up the rankings here. And it's awesome. All right? When you win 4 in a row, when you dominate, when you're the only team in the NFL to not allow the other team to run for 100 yards in a game. Think about it. No other team in the league has done it. We're talking about the Lions run defense. Do you remember the Lions run defense 2 years ago? Remember Halloween against Philly? The Eagles ran for like 400 yards on the Lions. Remember last year against Carolina when the Panthers set records against the Lions? There's one team in the league that hasn't allowed 100 yards by a team yet. It's Detroit. So the Lions keep moving up, and this is what happens when you win. But I think Dan Campbell and the staff and everybody deserves so much credit. Brad Holmes, Chris Spielman, everybody at the front office too. They're on an even keel. They're going to go into Baltimore. And if the Ravens beat the Lions this week, which might happen, okay, it might. The Lions aren't going to shoot themselves in the foot. The Lions aren't going to no-show or have a clunker. They're going to be right there with a good team who also is top 5 in scoring defense. So it's pretty cool. Stephen A. Smith, whatever, but like maybe you don't like him, but number 1, all right, these other teams, San Francisco, Miami, KC, Philly, Baltimore, these are really good teams. And I know the league is down. And I know the division is an absolute dumpster fire. I get it. All right. The NFC's got like 2 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Matthew Stafford, in the entire conference that have ever been to a Super Bowl, not named Jared Goff. Jared Goff is one of 3 NFC quarterbacks to make it to the game. It's not like the old days when there were quarterbacks aplenty in these conferences. All right. And they'll face a good one this week in Lamar Jackson. But it's pretty cool that the Lions are moving up in these power rankings. One roster move made today. The Lions have added Mo Ibrahim, the former Lion running back that was cut due to an injury settlement back in August. The rookie from Minnesota has been added to the practice squad, of course, with David Montgomery's injury and Jahmyr Gibbs. We're not sure. We think he's coming back. But Mo Ibrahim was a really good college back. It's been added to the Lions practice squad today. All right. Ross Tucker of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast is going to join us coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions. Locked On Lions. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. All right. If you've benefited from therapy in the past, if you've talked to somebody and maybe you got out of it, but you want to get back into it. All right. You know what you should do. All right. What's good for you, but you just can't do it. Maybe therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back. So who you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. That is why you got to check out BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And the great thing about BetterHelp is you could switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I'm serious. Check them out online. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. If you think of starting up therapy, please give BetterHelp a try. And ladies and gentlemen, Locked On Lions brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. That is right. Here's the thing about DoorDash. All right. Game goes to a timeout or it's at the half or whatever, and you got to order food and order in with DoorDash. All right. Ordering time, 2-minute warning, whatever it is, you got it. That's your cue to order in. The place to do it is at DoorDash. Whenever the clock stops, that's when it's DoorDash time. Why root for your team on an empty stomach this coming Sunday against Baltimore? Order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. Order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. All your favorite restaurants and stores, from retail to grocery, are on the DoorDash app, so you can shop everything you need to get game day ready. Get prepared before game day. Stock up on your favorite appetizers with DoorDash. Get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app, enter the code LOCKED23. That's LOCKED 23. Subject to change. Terms apply. And as promised, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, our buddy from just about everywhere, the Ross Tucker Podcast, CBS TV, Westwood One. He was calling the Sunday night game this past week. Our good friend Ross Tucker is with us here on Locked On Lions. Ross, great to see you.
Likewise, Matt. Usually people say, how are you doing? And I was all ready and teed up to say to you, not as good as you are, man. I mean, the way your team is playing right now, I'm so excited for Lions fans. I mean, I just hope they keep it rolling, keep playing the way they're playing. It's such an exciting time for you guys.
Well, Ross, I know you keep tabs. You and I have talked for a couple of years. I know you keep tabs on Pennsylvania's own Alex Anzalone, and boy, he's having a great year. And this defense is setting the tone. This is crazy. You never thought they'd do this, right?
No, I did not think. I mean, I thought they'd be better this year. I didn't think they'd play this well, and I'm extremely proud of Alex. As I think I've told you before, I've known him since he was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. There's only 3 guys from our high school that have ever made the NFL. And it's cool because when I was in the NFL, he was like in grade school, and junior high maybe. And then I retired and he led our high school to a state championship, which was great. But the big thing is, Matt, he got injured a lot. I mean, he got injured 2 or 3 shoulder surgeries at Florida, at least one more with the Saints.
Right.
And so I did not know if this would happen for him, that he'd be able to stay healthy, whatever that stat is where he has like 5 tackles a game for like 30 games or whatever it is.
It's
and
6,
I feel like he's really kind of playing the best football of his career. It feels like he's in his prime right now. Just when I was shutting it down, I think what's he, year 7? Just when I was just about done, he looks like he's in the prime of his career.
Well, you watch the tape, and I know you review all these teams, but you look at the 5-1 Lions, you see the 4-game win streak and some impressive road wins. But what stands out to you right now, Ross?
They're really pretty darn good up front, both sides of the ball, and it doesn't seem like you can go very far unless you got that going for you, right? Like I tell people, I do the preseason games for the Eagles, and pretty much every game the Eagles play, they have the better offensive line and the better defensive line. I mean, think about that for any level of football, high school,
Sure.
college, Pop Warner. I mean, you start the game with the better O-line and D-line, it's a pretty good place to be, right? It's like starting the game on third base.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the Lions are quite what the Eagles are necessarily up front on both sides of the ball, but they're close. I mean, if the Eagles are the best offensive line, maybe the Lions are number 2 or number 3. I mean, they're right there, and the Eagles are now banged up on the right side. So maybe the Lions are even the best right now. And then even on the defensive line, I don't know that they can come at you in waves like the Eagles can. I don't know that they've got the D tackles that the Eagles have, but there's a lot of guys stepping up and making plays when you watch that. They have a dominant player in Hutchinson, but then you see these other guys that have stepped up and really, it feels like they're taking their turns making plays. So while I don't think they're, the best in both those categories, it feels like most games they've played, Matt, they've had the better O-line and the better D-line, and it's shown up during the game.
Ross Tucker with us, CBS Westwood 1, Ross Tucker podcast, at Ross Tucker NFL on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. You just saw Josh Allen. You were just in Buffalo Sunday night. Where's Jared Goff right now in this quarterback pedigree, pecking order, because he's having an MVP year so far, isn't he?
He's been fantastic. And that's another guy. We talked about Anzalone and being proud of him. I'm just so happy for Jared Goff. When the Rams traded him to the Lions, his career really could have gone in a different direction, right? Oh, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people thought he was almost like a throw-in in the trade, the Lions taking the contract off the hands of the Rams. I don't know anybody expected this. And a lot of people thought the Lions would draft a quarterback 2 years ago or last year or whatever. He is playing well. And the thing that's probably as impressive as any, Matt, they've kept it rolling seemingly no matter who gets banged up. No Gibbs or no Amon-Ra or no Jamison earlier in the year. David Montgomery goes down. That's how you know you're playing well. And that's how you know your quarterback's playing at a high level, when you can bring in these new guys or mix and match, who's available and still be able to keep the train rolling.
What does that say about the franchise that it's year 3 of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, and yet a lot of depth? You mentioned it. No, Brian Branch did not play this week in Tampa. They go down there and win. CJ Gardner-Johnson's out for the year, most likely. Montgomery goes down, and yet they just keep winning.
Well, that's the NFL, right? I mean, you have to anticipate that you're going to lose several starters throughout the year, some for the year, some just for chunks of time. And that's why every spot is valuable, right? And I know I'm not picking on the Giants because their first 3 left tackles got hurt, right? That's really tough. But you can't find yourself in a situation where you sign Justin Pugh off the couch and he's playing left tackle for you in a game. I mean, Sunday Night Football, you just can't do that. Like that cannot be the case. And yet it was for Pugh and the Giants. And that's why even those practice squad spots are valuable, right? Because usually you get cluster injuries. Right now for the Lions, it's at running back, right? So give them credit for having Craig Reynolds on the roster. And that young guy, he went to college about 20 minutes from me and Alex, where we grew up at Kutztown University. And he's playing his you-know-what off. And, man, that block was awesome. And there's just such a vibe for the Lions. You know what's cool about the Lions? The Lions are like the NFC's Buffalo Bills in the sense that because they've been bad for so long and because their fans are so loyal, nobody really hates the Lions. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like everybody's kind of rooting for the Lions. Right. You know, everybody has their own team, and then their secondary team is the Lions. I'll say this, though, Matt. I've always been so impressed with Lions fans and their loyalty, despite, you know, having nothing to show for it. I am so impressed with the way they've traveled this year.
Oh, yeah.
Taking over Green Bay, taking over Tampa Bay. I mean, since when do the Lions travel like this?
I think the fans have always gone, but now this town has been waiting for them to win. The other teams haven't been good either here. So the Lions have taken center stage times 1,000. And you're right. At the end of these games, because they've been blowouts, the Green Bay game and you mentioned in Tampa, they all just converge and merge down to the lower bowl. And the Bucs fans are like, I'm getting out of here. I don't need to be in this sea of blue. By the way, if Justin Pugh gets hurt, is Ross Tucker's phone going to be blowing up? Are you going to be hearing from the Giants?
Definitely not. I'm 44. I'm 250 pounds. I have a bad back and a bad right knee. Every once in a while, now obviously they would never call me Matt as a joke.
Yes.
But every once in a while I think about like how much they would have to pay me to go back out there. Knowing what I know now, like knowing that there is life after football, there is other things. It would be a lot, man. It would be a lot.
Well, what about what's his name? Jason Peters. He's like 40. He's still playing. Crazy.
Yeah, I would love to get him on my show, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Former teammate of mine in Buffalo. In fact, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, Matt. There was a time, believe it or not, when I was starting for the Bills and he was on the practice squad. It's like laughable now when you look at how great his career's been. But I'd love to get him on my show because I'm just like so curious. I think he's made like $200 million. Like why? Like, why are you still playing? Because he's not actually really playing. He's just on the team. I guess he just loves it.
That's pretty cool. All right, more with Ross coming up next. I want to ask him about this Sunday's game, a big one, as the Baltimore Ravens host the Lions coming up Sunday at 1:00. We're brought to you today by our friends at Gametime. Look, there's no better app in trying to find tickets for anything, whether it's music, comedy, theater events, and of course sports, than Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, which I love, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy. That's why I love Gametime. Not all the apps do it, but Gametime does. You got deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and also even an hour after it starts. Download that Gametime app right now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Our buddy Ross Tucker with us, Ross Tucker Football Podcast, a CBS big time star. Man, I'm looking up at your Twitter. I see you're what Vanderbilt this weekend. Where were you? And then you're up.
I did Georgia at Vanderbilt on Saturday for CBS.
Right.
Flew home and then drove halfway up to Buffalo and did the Eagles pregame show on the radio from a hotel in Corning, New York. Then I drove the rest of the way to the stadium and did the Bills Giants game on for Westwood One Radio, which ended up being actually a a really good game. I will say this too, before I forget, Matt.
Yes.
The Even Money Betting Podcast. I'm killing it. So I know in Michigan it's legal now, and a lot of you guys are into it. My co-host is one of the best professional bettors of all time, Steve Fezzik. Definitely check out the Even Money Betting Podcast if you guys like to make the games a little bit more interesting.
Tell me about Sunday, Lions, Ravens. What do you think? I mean, look, Detroit's 5-1. They're playing great. You're not going to go perfect on the road. They might with the rest of the schedule, but is this the game where they finally lose, or you say, look, they can hang with Baltimore?
I think it's going to be an awesome game. I have to look at the schedule again, but I think it's one of the games of the day. I know the Eagles play the Dolphins. I mean, there's going to be some awesome games, but this is one of them. Feels like a huge swing game for both teams, right? I mean, if the Lions could get to 6-1 and drop the Ravens to a third loss, that would be significant. You know, the Ravens are favored and probably rightfully so, I guess, playing at home. But, man, I don't play anything past the Lions. The way the Lions are playing right now, I will say it feels like some of these injuries are starting to stack up on them a little bit, obviously, especially like at the running back position. So we'll see. I think it's a toss-up game. I mean, it's not like the Ravens come out and blow people out. I think this is a field goal game. Either way, I'd probably give a slight edge to the Ravens playing at home, but wouldn't be surprised at all if the Lions get this one done. Curious to see how many Honolulu blue and jerseys we see there in Baltimore.
When you prep for Lamar Jackson, what goes into that? Because, you know, now he got his contract and everything else, but how much of a different look is that for Detroit? Obviously, they played Baker Mayfield this past week. They've seen some scrambling guys. Geno Smith hurt them in week 2, but what about when you prep for Lamar?
Well, he's a different animal than those guys, right? I mean, those guys can run. Lamar Jackson will run and can really run. Has to be a point of emphasis all week in practice this week. It will be. They need to have a plan for when they rush the passer, right? Are you just going after him to try to get him down? Do you try to cage rush so that he can't scramble for first downs? Do you try to have specifically let him exit one way, but know that you're kind of pushing him in that direction, and then you have a secondary contained player? There's a lot more that goes into it, I think, than people realize. He's throwing the ball very well, looks comfortable in this new offense, but their receivers aren't that great. Their receivers have been kind of up and down, so that's been the one negative. They're leaning heavily on the rookie Zay Flowers, and so I think it's a perfect matchup.
All right, you mentioned your work with the Eagles. Let's say Detroit and Philly play at SoFi Stadium on a neutral site out in LA this week. Who wins the game?
This week is interesting because I don't know if Lane Johnson will play for the Eagles. I do power rankings every Tuesday on the Raw Tucker Football Podcast. I was really tempted to have the Lions ahead of the Eagles.
Wow.
I ended up keeping the Eagles at 2. I've got the Dolphins at 3. I moved the Lions ahead of the Chiefs. I have the Lions as the 4th best team in the NFL right now. And honestly, Matt, if they pull this one off, and Philly doesn't look as good, and maybe even San Francisco doesn't look as good, I mean, the Lions are knocking on the door of being number 1. I mean, the Niners and the Eagles both just lost. The Lions won an impressive game on the road, but these games coming up with the Eagles playing the Dolphins and the Lions playing the Ravens will be a big indicator of where these teams are at.
All right, final thing. We got holiday season coming up. I know your friends at My Front Page Story have something pretty cool. Tell us about it.
Well, I've told you about it before. Your listeners are amazing. They must be the smartest people in the world because they took advantage of it. MyFrontPageStory.com. Literally talk to a writer for 10 minutes, or you just fill out a quick email. They'll write the most unbelievable story about any loved one, your mom, your wife, your sibling, whatever. They cry. Almost all of them cry. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper, like the Detroit Free Press. Beautiful framed pictures of you and them, or them and the kids. They will love it. And it's like the gift that keeps on giving, because she'll have it hanging up in the house and you'll just get kudos and props forever. MyFrontPageStory.com. MyFrontPageStory.com. Check it out.
Ross Tucker, you're the best. Great to see you, my friend. And hopefully one of these days I'll send you to Ford Field so you can come here and we can hang out.
That would be amazing. I've done a bunch of Thanksgiving Day games there, but this year I got Iowa and Nebraska on television. Love to get to Ford Field, and let's do this again, Matt. Hopefully when the Lions are getting ready for the playoffs.
You got it, Ross. Thank you, buddy. There he is, Ross Tucker with us. Ross Tucker Football Podcast, CBS, Westwood 1, at Ross Tucker NFL on Twitter. We're back again tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions.